For many years, Nancy Walker worked at Titan Industries. Her work went unnoticed by the management and employees of the company. Everyone knew the office was always clean and that trash never piled up, but few paid attention to the one who ensured this cleanliness. Nancy was invisible in the literal sense of the word, a janitor whose existence was forgotten as soon as she left the room. Nobody thought about her, and no one noticed her presence. While Nancy herself didn't seek attention, she knew everything about the people who worked at the company, their secrets, ambitions, and weaknesses, yet she remained unnoticed. Every day she came to work at the same time, with the same smile on her face and the same calmness in her eyes. She observed how the employees fulfilled their duties, how they conversed with each other, how they argued and made up. She saw how managers interacted with their subordinates and how arrogance and disdain flooded the office corridors. One person who particularly stood out for his contemptuous attitude toward others was Greg Summers. Greg was a senior manager who seemed to believe the entire world revolved around him. His arrogance knew no bounds. He could walk past Nancy without even glancing at her and would sometimes make biting comments, as if she didn't exist at all. "Well, Nancy, another pointless cleaning," he would say, throwing trash on the floor right in front of her. Other employees, including Greg's subordinates, laughed at his remarks. They saw nothing offensive in his words and didn't realize how lowly he regarded those he deemed beneath him. Nancy, however, remained calm. She continued working, ignoring the humiliating comments as if she didn't hear them at all. Her composure and patience impressed those who were a bit more attentive and sensitive. But Greg Summers wasn't the only one showing contempt for Nancy. David Harris, another senior manager at the company, also mocked her repeatedly. His comments were just as biting and arrogant as Greg's. David never missed a chance to humiliate Nancy in front of his colleagues, unaware of how cruel his words were. "Well, Nancy, you missed something again, didn't you?" he would say with a cold smirk, casting a condescending glance at her. David's colleagues laughed at his remarks, not realizing the full extent of their cruelty. They didn't see the person before them. They only saw a janitor who, in their opinion, didn't deserve more attention. But Nancy maintained her composure. She continued to perform her duties with the same calmness. However, not everyone in the company was blind to what was happening. Emma Brown, a new employee who had just started working at Titan Industries, noticed the attitude towards Nancy. She was struck by how senior managers allowed themselves to treat those who worked for the benefit of the company in such a manner. Emma began to pay attention to Nancy, and she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this woman than met the eye. Every time Emma saw Greg or David say something hurtful to Nancy, she noticed that Nancy silently endured the humiliation without losing her dignity. Emma felt that Nancy possessed an inner strength that none of the arrogant managers had. Emma sensed that Nancy was not just a janitor, but someone who understood the situation far better than anyone else in the company. She began to suspect that changes were coming, and that Nancy was at the center of these changes. With each passing day, Emma became more convinced that this invisible janitor would soon play an important role in the fate of the company. She thought, what if this quiet woman, whom everyone underestimates, becomes a key figure in the company one day? Emma began to watch the events around her more closely, hoping that her suspicions would be confirmed. Meanwhile, Titan Industries was preparing for its annual review. This was an important event for the company, where they would summarize the year's work, discuss future strategy, and present key decisions. The atmosphere in the office was becoming increasingly tense. Senior executives, including Greg Summers and David Harris, were actively preparing for the meeting. It was important not only to impress CEO Robert Mason, but also to showcase their achievements. Robert Mason, known for his tough management style, was a man whom many in the company feared. His decisions were decisive, and his word could determine the career paths of many employees. On the day of the meeting, all the executives gathered in the large conference room. Nancy, as usual, arrived early to tidy up the space. She took her time to ensure every chair was aligned, every surface gleamed, and every wastebasket was empty. As she worked, she listened to snippets of conversation, gathering insights about the company's priorities and the ongoing tension among the management. Once everything was ready, Robert Mason entered the room. His confident stride and stern gaze immediately drew the attention of everyone present. But then he stopped, and to everyone's surprise, he turned his attention to Nancy. This was unexpected. Everyone in the room froze, not understanding what was happening. Robert approached Nancy and calmly said, "Nancy, please come here." All those in the room were stunned. Nancy, maintaining her composure, stood up and walked to the center of the room. This was the same Nancy they had always considered invisible. And then something incredible happened. Robert Mason, the CEO of Titan Industries, announced that Nancy Walker was the majority shareholder of the company. This news struck like thunder in a clear sky. Silence fell in the room. Everyone couldn't believe their ears. Employees who had thought of Nancy as just a janitor were faced with the reality of the company's true owner. Robert Mason explained that Nancy had been a shareholder for many years but preferred to remain in the shadows. She had been observing all the processes within the company, the behavior of employees, and the attitude of managers towards their subordinates. Now she had decided to step into the light and take control. Nancy stepped to the center of the room and began her speech. She explained that for many years she had watched the company from within, seeing how arrogance and disdain for employees eroded it from the inside. She emphasized that she would no longer tolerate such attitudes. Now she would lead the company and ensure that every employee felt respected and valued. Nancy's first step was to fire David Harris, the senior manager who had constantly mocked her and others. The very same manager who had thought he was untouchable lost everything he had achieved over the years of his career. The room was in shock. When Nancy announced David Harris's termination, a grave silence fell in the room. No one could believe their ears. David was one of the most influential people in the company, and his confidence in his invulnerability seemed unshakable. However, now with Nancy's sharp and final decision, his career had ended in an instant. David, stunned and disbelieving, stood up from his seat and tried to protest, but his words got lost in the general confusion. Nancy coldly looked at him and calmly said, "Your actions have undermined employees' trust for years and created a toxic atmosphere in the company. There is no longer a place for those who put their ambitions above respect and decency." After these words, David silently left the room, and the others present realized that this was just the beginning of the changes that awaited Titan Industries. After firing David, Nancy continued her speech. She made it clear to everyone that the company would no longer be the same. Those who did not change their behavior, who could not adapt to the new conditions, also risked losing their jobs. If you are not willing to change your attitude towards your colleagues, if you cannot see the value in every employee, you do not belong here, she declared. She emphasized that the company should be built on respect and cooperation. Employees would no longer tolerate arrogance and rudeness from management. Instead, the company culture should be based on the value of human capital, mutual support, and understanding. Nancy announced that the company would start from scratch. She would build a new culture where every employee could realize their potential, where respect and attention to people's needs would be a priority. Her main goal was to create a corporate environment where no one felt invisible or undervalued. These changes affected everyone, from senior management to ordinary employees. Nancy encouraged everyone to reflect on their actions and reconsider their role in the company. She knew that the changes would be challenging, but she was ready for it. After her speech, everyone understood that serious changes were coming. However, Nancy was not finished yet. Next in her sights was Greg Summers. His arrogance and mockery towards Nancy had not gone unnoticed. Greg, sensing his impending doom, tried to protest, but Nancy firmly stated, "Greg, your management style is the embodiment of the culture we are leaving behind. You have considered yourself above others for too long and belittled your subordinates. That will no longer happen." She announced his dismissal with the same cold confidence as in David's case. Unlike David, Greg did not try to protest. He was too stunned to say anything. Silence fell in the room again as Greg left, realizing that his time at the company had come to an end. After Greg's departure, Nancy again addressed the gathered crowd. Her goal was simple: to create a new corporate culture where everyone would be valued for their efforts and contributions to the common cause. "We will no longer tolerate abuse of power, arrogance, and contempt for employees," she declared. Nancy emphasized the importance of the changes that would affect not only the management structure, but also the internal atmosphere of the company. She wanted every employee to feel valued, to know that their contribution mattered. There would be no more room for humiliation or toxic behavior. A new era was beginning at Titan Industries. What was especially important was that the CEO of the company, Robert Mason, fully supported Nancy. He understood that the company needed change and saw Nancy as a leader capable of bringing it about. Robert approached Nancy after her speech and publicly expressed his support. Nancy is right. We have turned a blind eye to the problems that have eroded the company from within for too long. But now we have a chance to change things, and I fully support her in this, he said. With Robert's endorsement, Nancy felt a wave of determination wash over her. She knew that the journey ahead would not be easy, but she was committed to fostering a new culture where respect and collaboration would be paramount. Employees, initially shocked by the events, began to shift their perspectives. They realized they were no longer working under the shadow of arrogant managers who belittled them. Instead, they had a leader who genuinely cared about their well-being. Nancy set to work immediately. She organized meetings with teams across all departments to discuss their needs and concerns. For the first time, employees felt they could voice their opinions without fear of ridicule. Nancy listened attentively, taking notes on what changes were necessary to create a supportive work environment. She asked open-ended questions that encouraged dialogue, allowing employees to share their experiences and frustrations. In one of these meetings, a junior employee named Mark shared his thoughts on the work culture. I often felt overlooked for promotions and projects because I was just a junior staff member, he confessed. I never thought my contributions mattered. It's like we're just here to fill roles, not to make a difference. Nancy nodded, empathizing with his feelings. You are not just filling a role, Mark. Every single person in this company plays a vital part in its success. We will ensure that everyone has opportunities to grow and be recognized for their efforts. Mark's eyes brightened at her words, and he felt a surge of hope. As the weeks progressed, Nancy implemented new policies focused on employee engagement and recognition. She introduced a program where employees could nominate their peers for Above and Beyond awards, celebrating their hard work and contributions. This initiative fostered a sense of camaraderie and appreciation that had long been missing. Employees began to support each other, creating a more harmonious work environment. However, not everyone welcomed these changes. Some longtime employees who had thrived in the previous culture of arrogance found it difficult to adapt. They resisted Nancy's vision and criticized her methods, insisting that they had always succeeded by being tough and competitive. They believed that weakness was a sign of failure, and Nancy's approach contradicted everything they had come to know. Nancy faced this resistance head-on. She called a meeting with these skeptical employees to discuss their concerns. I understand that change can be uncomfortable, she began, looking each person in the eye. But we cannot afford to cling to old ways that have caused harm. Our goal is not just to succeed in business, but to create an environment where everyone thrives. Can you imagine what we could accomplish if we worked together instead of against each other? The room was silent, and Nancy could see the gears turning in their minds. Some began to reconsider their positions. Over time, even the most resistant employees began to see the benefits of her leadership style. The atmosphere lightened and morale improved. The transformation at Titan Industries was palpable, and the company began to flourish. As Nancy settled into her role, she also initiated mentorship programs, pairing experienced employees with newer hires to foster knowledge sharing and growth. She believed that everyone had something to contribute, and that collaboration was the key to innovation. Employees started to feel more invested in their work and the company's success. Meanwhile, Emma Brown continued to support Nancy and champion the new culture. Inspired by Nancy's vision, Emma organized social events to strengthen relationships among co-workers. These gatherings allowed employees to bond outside of work, further promoting a sense of community. The team-building activities ranged from casual lunches to more structured workshops aimed at enhancing teamwork and communication skills. As the months passed, the positive changes at Titan Industries became evident. The company's performance improved significantly, and productivity soared. Employees reported higher job satisfaction, and turnover rates began to decline. Nancy's approach to leadership was proving successful, and the once opaque walls of the corporate structure were now transparent and inviting. One day during a company-wide meeting, Nancy shared the achievements they had made together. "This is not just my success. It is our collective victory," she declared, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Together, we have transformed this company into a place where everyone's voice matters. Let's continue to build on this foundation of respect and collaboration." The applause that followed was deafening, and Nancy felt a swell of pride. This was the moment she had envisioned when she took control. The employees had come to understand that their contributions were valued, and they were eager to continue working together to achieve greater heights. As Titan Industries thrived, Nancy became a respected figure in the corporate world. She was invited to speak at conferences and share her insights on leadership and workplace culture. Her story resonated with many, and she began to inspire other companies to adopt similar principles. No longer the invisible janitor, Nancy had emerged as a beacon of hope and change. Yet even with her newfound recognition, Nancy remained humble. She never forgot the lessons learned during her years of invisibility. In every speech and meeting, she emphasized the importance of treating everyone with respect, regardless of their position. "Every person in a company has the power to create change," she often said. "It starts with recognizing the value in each individual." As Titan Industries continued to thrive under Nancy's leadership, she remained committed to ensuring that no one else would ever feel invisible again. She established a foundation within the company that focused on employee development, offering scholarships and training programs to help employees advance their careers. This initiative not only enhanced skills, but also solidified the idea that the company was invested in its people. Nancy's journey from invisibility to empowerment became a legacy at Titan Industries. Employees who once felt overlooked now knew their worth and had the tools to succeed. The transformation had been profound, turning a company riddled with arrogance and contempt into a thriving community built on respect, collaboration, and shared success. As Nancy reflected on her journey, she felt immense gratitude for the challenges she had faced. They had shaped her into the leader she had become. She realized that true leadership is not about power or authority. It is about uplifting others and creating an environment where everyone can shine. And that was exactly what she had done at Titan Industries, a company that had not only survived but thrived by embracing the power of respect and understanding.